What's up, everyone? We're back for post-game Locked On Bucks. Look at Frank. He's up late. What time is it? It's nearly midnight, but he's still wide awake because the Bucks blew out the Lakers, which is always fun. And Giannis was unstoppable tonight. 44 points, 15 rebounds. We're going to break down that performance. Bobby Portis was on fire. There's plenty to talk about. This was just an all-round fun experience if you're a Bucks fan. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. I'm your host, Kane Pittman. Alongside me is the founder of Jrue Hoop and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden. I completely botched that intro. I'm a little distracted because I'm in a different environment here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see that. And also my audio is not great. I'm on AirPods, okay? So I just want to acknowledge that right off the top. I'm on the move today. I'm not in my usual environment to podcast. So hopefully everyone can withstand that for this show today. That is brought to you by Prize Picks. Check out prizepicks.com and use the promo code NBA or go to your app store and download the app today. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy, and we always thank everyone for making Locked On Bucks their first listen of every day, Frank. And if you're a Bucks fan, I assume you're probably going to sleep and then listening to this podcast, and you'll be waking up feeling pretty good. 131 to 116. There was some minor excitement, I guess, in the fourth quarter. I think that was more Staples Center just thrilled that they had something to cheer about because they've been supporting this Lakers team all year long. That has been an absolute disaster. But Giannis was dominant. 44 points, 14 rebounds, 8 assists, 17 for 20 from the field. We've spoken about the Bucks starting to play some better basketball. I mentioned on the podcast yesterday that regardless of what the Lakers have been doing, they got LeBron, they got AD, you go in with some trepidation, but Milwaukee put this one away early, and there's nothing they could do about Giannis. We're going to start with Giannis tonight, Frank.
Yeah, I mean, we sometimes let Giannis's brilliance kind of, fade into the background noise of the game just because we're so used to it that, there's usually other things that are like the swings in wins and losses and things like that. But tonight was one of those nights where it has to be the story. And I mean, that was an easy 44 points too. Like it did not feel like he was, it did not feel like it took a Herculean effort for him to do this. It looked like he was really tired at the end. He got a couple buckets there late to kind of really ice it. But yeah, he was just in complete control. He started the game. I think was he 10 for 10 or 11 for 11? He just literally could not miss from the field. And again, I mean, the second time this season that he has absolutely dismantled Anthony Davis and the Laker defense. Now 91 points in two games against AD and the Lakers. And, I think credit to obviously first and foremost Giannis. I mean, 17 out of 20 is crazy. I mean, that, I think back to the Blazer game last year where I don't know, was he like 18 out of 21 or something like that? I mean, just the shooting efficiency at that volume is just crazy. And, I have some late night clothes drying here, as you can hear from that noise, but that was not the buzzer to the game. But hit a couple of threes for good measure in the first half. He's up over 30%, by the way, folks. He's always seemingly every year now at like 30 point something percent. He's at 30.3%. He's been shooting the ball well from three. But yeah, just complete control. And I thought, played off his teammates really well. Grayson Allen found him for a couple of easy dunks in the first quarter. Bucks just pretty much had the Laker defense just in complete disorder for certainly probably about 3.5 quarters, let's say, of this game. And going to the fourth quarter, Bucks were at, I think, 109 points. They needed only 28 to match 137 for the third straight game. Alas, they fall short of that. Only scored 23 in the fourth quarter. But I think we'll take it. They've now put up 405 points in 4 days, 3-0, averaging 135 points per game. The offense just continues to click. Chris Middleton was awesome in the first half. I don't know that did he even score in the second half? He finished with 21 points on 19 shots. I don't even know if he scored in the second half. Bobby Portis continues to just be on fire from three, 23 points, 5 out of 9 from three. But and Jrue Holiday, steady as he goes, 15 points, had a couple of nice buckets in the fourth quarter, 10 assists. Again, just the guys that we've been used to seeing get it done all year. Once again, got it done tonight. And again, Giannis just set the tone, had that early block on Russell Westbrook, then just completely packed Anthony Davis on a mid-range jumper attempt. That really kind of set the tone for the game. And, I think the shooting efficiency is crazy, 44 points on 20 shots. 8 assists to go with the 14 rebounds, a steal, those couple blocks. And probably the most impressive thing, we've talked about how turnovers had been occasionally an issue for him and Chris over the past couple of months, especially when Jrue wasn't around. But Giannis, no turnovers tonight either. This was just a masterpiece from him. And, statistically, he's had just some absolutely incredible games over his career. But this is probably going to be one of those that when you look around to sort of the overall body of work, the efficiency, doing it in 35 minutes, this is going to be pretty high up on his list of just sort of all around, just completely dominant performances.
Well, it is, but I was just thinking about that. I think if you go back and look at some of the individual games that he's had against LeBron, there's some massive ones, and a lot of them memorable, particularly earlier in his career, because these were these almost breakout national TV performances that he had. And I was thinking that this is probably going to get lost in the shuffle eventually because the game was a non-event. And so all of a sudden the performance will get lost. But the zero turnovers, I remember looking in the third quarter and he had 0 turnovers. And I thought, geez, that's pretty impressive. But I didn't realize he got through the whole game without picking one up there. But your point about it being an easy, dominant performance for me is the one. When you talk about Giannis and the way he controls games now, and there was some physical stuff where he was just too big and he was too strong, where he'd power up under the basket for sure, and they needed a couple of those baskets late in the game. But there was also the control. There was the post up on LeBron and the turnaround fadeaway, which they obviously put that in slow-mo, and doing that on LeBron is pretty epic stuff. That's cool to see. And we were talking about that turnaround jump shot last week, and regardless of whether you think it's a great shot, it's still very cool when he does that, backing down LeBron, because LeBron's been doing that to everyone for the better part of the last 2 decades. There was also the knocking down the couple threes. He shot the three while the last couple of nights, as you pointed to. Next thing, AD's biting on a three, which is just an absolute boneheaded play from Anthony Davis. But he's like, okay, now you're going to start biting on this. I'm going to the free throw line. Some of the passing. So I think that was the incredible thing for me. It wasn't just your normal Giannis dominating teams. He's like, I'm going to score in this way. Now I'm going to score this way. Now I'm going to facilitate. There's nothing you can do to stop me, which we understand the Lakers have been struggling, but nonetheless, doing that against a LeBron team is still pretty jarring. It's jarring to see him just physically, whatever way, mentally dominate a team that LeBron's on the other side of the floor.
Yeah, and I think it also, what he's done to Anthony Davis. I mean, it's not like Anthony Davis is like bad at defending one-on-one or something like that, but it just sort of highlights like, the trap I think that teams can fall into when they have individual defenders that they feel like they can put on Giannis 1v1. And, AD is the obvious guy here, but they try to put LeBron on him as well. We've seen in the past, a couple of years ago before the bubble, remember the loss they had in LA where Giannis hurt his knee and had a pretty big game, but the Lakers ended up winning. And that was like part of like LeBron's, can he win that? Can he snatch the MVP narrative? LeBron had some good defensive moments in that game. And when LeBron puts his mind to it, I mean, he's still enormous and really strong, even though he's not as tall as Giannis. Yeah. But I think you just saw tonight, I mean, to ask anybody one-on-one to try to defend Giannis it's just a really tall order. And, Trevor Ariza got thrown in there a few times. I mean, Trevor Ariza, sorry, man, like you're not going to have much of a chance. And, again, he didn't have to just ISO his way to all those points either, right? We saw Chris throw a great lob to him off an out of bounds play, which we've seen twice now in the last week. We haven't really seen that much this year after they started to do that a lot more last year. We saw a number of alley-oops tonight for him. And, again, just kind of rolling to the rim, hanging around the paint basket, teammates finding him for easy finishes. And, again, it's nice when Giannis can just sort of play like a big guy and not have to create all his own shots. And we saw tonight, again, Laker defense, it's pretty rough. It's pretty rough. And that's been a theme for them all year. But, I think if you want to take some things from this game, if you're Mike Budenholzer, Bucks 64 paint points, Lakers 64 paint points. The Lakers really were able to pretty much bully the Bucks inside, especially in that second half when they mounted that comeback that got them to within 10. It was pretty much LeBron and Stanley Johnson just sort of driving, bullying with reckless abandon towards the rim and getting some finishes or putting the ball up on the rim, getting some tip ins, things like that. So, again, this was not a work of art from the Bucks defensively by any stretch of the imagination. I think they ended up about like a 112 defensive rating and about a 128 offensive rating. So, hey, you will gladly take this performance. Bucks and Bucks fans should sleep very well tonight after this game. But I think we saw in the second half there, getting out to that big lead. We talk about the rubber band effect. You get this really big lead. Bucks led by as many as 30. And again, it's kind of just human nature to kind of let up a little bit. And again, I thought a lot of fouling by the Bucks, and Lakers had a lot of success getting the rim in the second half. So certainly some things that they can continue to work on there. But overall, I mean, the offense is an absolute machine right now. And certainly, we talked about this road trip. It's a 4-game road trip. You got the hardest game on the tail end of it going into Phoenix with the rematch of the finals. We talked about winning those first two was great on the back-to-back because it guarantees, hey, you got at least a 500 trip. You knew you could come in tonight and you'd be the favorite to come away with another win. Now you're 3-0. And look, if you can beat the Suns, they've been the hottest team in basketball. If you can beat them, awesome. That's probably a new high point for the season, capping off an awesome road trip. If you fall short, not the end of the world. You've been playing much better basketball. So obviously, I think both teams are going to be really motivated on Thursday for that rematch of the finals. But again, Bucks, I think at a minimum have been playing better basketball overall. They're not just kind of squeaking their way to wins here. And again, not the hardest of competition here over these past 3 games on this road trip. But again, these are still road games. You had a back-to-back over the weekend. Nobody's just handing you these games. And obviously, we saw early in the season the Bucks had their share of stumbles, and lo and behold, you look at the standings. Bucks just 1 loss behind the Heat for the top spot in the East. So remains extremely jam-packed. You lose a couple of games, you go tumbling down 3-4 spots. But Philly getting a loss at the hands of the Suns. Thank you, Suns, tonight. Puts the Bucks again at 35-21. The Heat are at 35-20, and still very compact. But always nice to see the Bucks creeping up higher into those standings as well.
It certainly is. For anyone who had Giannis and thought that he was going to get 40-plus points tonight, you probably did pretty well. But speaking of props, you can go to Prize Picks. Because if you are looking for a daily fantasy option for the NBA, then you need to try the award-winning app Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. You guys know I love it already. I've been talking about it for a while, but you will too. It's easy to use. All you have to do is get 2 to 5 players and then over and under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry, and it's just you versus the projected numbers. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less, so that's how easy it is. And we have a pretty good deal for you guys as well. There is a mixed sports entry, so with the Super Bowl coming up, you can also take a look there as well. But for a limited time, Prize Picks has an exclusive no-brainer of an offer for all our users. Users get $50 free if a player's first Prize Picks entry scores a single point. But you have to use the code NBA. That's right. This is an exclusive offer available to Locked On fans. Sign up today and use code NBA for $50 free. If a player in your first Prize Picks entry scores a single point, that's Prize Picks Daily Fantasy made easy. Well, we did have a couple of trades around the NBA earlier today as we're recording this. And we always thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen of every single day. But speaking of trades, the NBA trade deadline is Thursday, February 10 at 3 p.m. Eastern time. We're getting very close. And the Locked On NBA podcast will be covering it live from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Join Kim Becker, John Corrales, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball legend Josh Lloyd to get analysis of every blockbuster move. Subscribe to Locked On NBA on YouTube. Turn on your notifications and you'll know when they go live. So you mentioned the out-of-bounds lob play late in the game. We had some new terminology surface from a Twitter user. The Twitter user was me. That particularly late in the game, the correct terminology for that late game lob play is a PUIOLISLOBLP. That's supposed to lose it or use it sideline out of bounds lob play. It never fails. Shout out to our friend Eric Name to help out with that. But you mentioned Bobby Portis, and it's interesting because obviously today the 3-point contest participants were named. we, along with other Bucks fans, have been, including Bobby Portis himself, has been advocating for Bobby to make the three-point contest. It would have been very fun. No one in the NBA is having more fun playing basketball than Bobby Portis right now. I think he's had 3 straight games of 20 points. Bucks PR tweeted that's a career best for him, or with the Bucks, it's a career best. 5 for 9 from 3 tonight. And you mentioned that this wasn't exactly a defensive masterpiece, and I thought that to myself through 3 quarters. I said, well, the Bucks have got 109 points. That's good. But the Lakers have 85. If the Bucks offense does fall away, they might find themselves in a bit of trouble. Bobby Portis hit another 3 in the fourth quarter. He just continues to hit big shots for this team. I was thinking to myself, if Anthony Davis had the mentality of Bobby Portis, then he might actually get close to what his reputation says he actually is. Because Bobby Portis, everyone loves this guy. They were talking about him so much on the broadcast on TNT tonight. But his hot streak is getting out of control. And I saw a few people on Twitter talking about the money that this man is going to earn. And we don't want to look too far ahead to the future. But if he keeps playing like this man will have the opportunity to earn significant money coming up here in a few months' time.
Yeah, I mean, for the Bucks, it's not that complicated because they can only offer him with the early bird rights, essentially the kind of an offer starting at the mid-level with raises. So I'd have to double check what it would be, but something on the order for like a 10 million-ish starting salary for 4 years. So something in the kind of mid 40s range, when all is said and done. At this point, yeah, give him the money. Hope he accepts it, and he can't find more money elsewhere. But honestly, I mean, I think this is such a good fit for Bobby as well.
Yeah.
He's not, he's got Giannis and Jrue to kind of cover for him defensively. And he gets tons of open looks, and man, his 3-point shooting has come back, bounced back from that kind of mini slump. Apparently, I think he's shouted out Eric. I think whenever Eric mentions to him that he's in a slump, then he gets himself back in gear and starts to hit a bunch of threes. And I think Eric did that before the road trip. So thank you, Eric, for motivating Bobby to start making threes again. But yeah, I mean, there's probably one of the most fun things watching this Bucks team. Obviously, Giannis dunks, blah blah blah, right? But there's something about just the energy when Bobby Portis is knocking down threes and forcing the other team to call timeouts because he goes on a run where he hits a couple threes and gets a little push shot and things like that. And we saw that again tonight. Again, just the night to night consistency from him. It's funny. I mean, just thinking about the idea of losing Brook Lopez. I feel like a lot of people have talked about appreciating Brook Lopez more because he's been gone, right? Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Flip side is, I mean, Bobby's been so good that, I think in the grand scheme of things, you haven't missed Brook as much as I think I would have expected them to, right? And we've talked about how some of that is due to maybe some shooting luck, the opponents shooting really poorly and probably masking some of their, deficiencies defensively. And obviously Bobby's part of that. But I think overall, I mean, you can't ask for anything more from him. He shot the ball so well from 3 last year. You thought, oh man, he's not gonna shoot 47%. But I mean, after tonight, he's probably up near 43% again, which for a guy who is taking more three, I mean, that's the other thing too. He's not taking a small volume of threes. He's upped his volume. He's confident every night. He's not going to back down. He's going to look for shots, and for him to continue to be really efficient, in spite of the fact that he doesn't shoot a lot of free throws, he takes a lot of mid-range jumpers. It's just a testament to just how well he's been playing, and his rebounding. The Bucks have held up pretty well, in terms of rebounding this year, defensive rebounding. I mean, it's a little bit worse than last year, but in the grand scheme of things, again, Bobby Portis is, the meme, the flex tape meme where they, show the big thing of water and then the guy slaps the flex tape on and magically fixes it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Bobby Portis, makes Brook Lopez redundant or anything like that, but Bobby has certainly been a big old slap of flex tape on the Bucks big man rotation. And I don't know. I mean, it's just crazy, right? I mean, I certainly was among the people that were, kind of skeptical about exactly how much value he could bring when he first signed with the Bucks before last season, right? We knew he could score, but he's really going to help you win games night in and night out. We saw him last year. He had some ups and downs, but we saw the scoring, the shooting was great. And even with the bumps that he had against the Nets, obviously eventually really falling out of the rotation of that series, came back and was obviously a big part of the Bucks' success closing out the Hawks when Giannis goes down. And then, Bobby Portis, 2 huge shots in fourth quarter of a Game 6 clinching victory for an NBA championship. I mean, it's been just an awesome ride for Bobby, the future mayor of Milwaukee, and been really fun to just see him continue to play so well on this road trip. And again, when Bobby Portis is playing at this level, Bucks don't lose games, right? I think there was that stat they flashed on the screen, like when he hits 2 or more threes, they're like 19-2, now 20-2. When Bobby's shooting well and giving you that ancillary scoring, the Bucks just are so tough to stop. And again, it's just really fun to watch. You can tell they have a great time. There's a team that's really enjoying playing with each other, and obviously they've done everything together now, having won a championship as well. So long live Bobby Portis, and if he doesn't make the 3-point shootout, that I'm okay with that. I've seen Chris Middleton struggle in the 3-point shootout. I don't need anybody kind of bringing Bobby Portis's bring Bobby Portis down, right? Like, just go on a nice vacation, Bobby. Do your thing and rest up, and just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, no doubt. It's just further confirmation of the old theory that contending teams, should be pillaging franchises like the Knicks, like the Wizards, like the Sacramento Kings, for these guys that look like they have talent that haven't exactly been able to find their footing. Put him in a good system with a good franchise with some developmental coaches, and you don't know what you could find. And for the Bucks, it's been huge. And a lot of the times you can get those guys for cheap as well, which is also the added bonus. It's kind of like, for me, if I'm eating a normal protein bar and then I go to Built Bar, there's some potential that I could have there, but then going to the Built Bar, it takes you to the next level, which is exactly kind of basically what the Bucks have done with Bobby Portis. And this is the time of year that some people have given up on their New Year's resolutions, but don't do it this year. 6-year resolution, eat right, and do it thanks to Built Bar. It's almost like it's not really a resolution, because you will actually be enjoying them more than ever. If you haven't tried the Puff, then you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. The Puffs are the first ever protein infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they are a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate, as well as all the bars are. They're low calorie, high protein. You can replace your candy bars with these. They are better. The typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. Not with Built Bar. You're at about 130. So go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 at built.com for 15% off. Frank, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go from here? Have you got more you want to discuss from this joyous game at the Crypt? Is there anything else you've got on your mind that you want to get out at 12:06 a.m. Central Time on a Wednesday morning? The floor is yours. Let us know what you're thinking at this time of night.
I briefly mentioned Grayson Allen earlier. I thought he had a nice night. Really, I feel like he did pretty much all of his damage in the first half, but 12 points on 9 shots, 4 assists. We mentioned a couple of really nice feeds to Giannis. That's one thing that I think I was curious about. With him coming to the Bucks, I was curious. At Duke and stuff, like, he kind of had, like, he was never like the point guard, but he'd had sort of flashes of, like, okay, he can bring the ball up and initiate offense a little bit. We really haven't seen a lot of that from him. I think he's obviously clearly much more of a shooter, guy off ball, can occasionally take in pick and roll, but he's mostly looking for his own shot. And I thought tonight, we saw him a couple times finding Giannis off of screens and being able to get Giannis dunks in the first quarter, and then taking handoffs and attacking and then hitting a little short, like, mid-range push shots. So Grayson Allen, shout out to Grayson Allen. Every Bucks starter had at least 12 points, and Grayson was a part of that kind of good start. And honestly, this game was never really very close, right? It just felt like the Bucks were in control from really the first quarter onward, and was fun to see Jrue Holiday. I think he only took like 4 shots or something like that in the first, like, 2.5 quarters. He really was not looking for a shot much at all. I think you and Justin talked about this the other night, that he had the huge game against the Clippers, and I think against the Blazers, like, he was barely even looking for a shot. But tonight he kind of grew into it as the game went on. Had a couple more of his very typical Jrue, like, he's kind of backing guys down. He's got like guys like Austin Reeves or Avery Bradley, or these kind of shorter guys on him that he thinks he can take advantage of. And you never know exactly how he's going to finish, right? Like sometimes, like he had that one where it was just like a 5-foot shot, but he shot it like twice as high as he thought he
The
needed
high
to.
arches are crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty fun watching just sort of like the creativity on some of the finishes from him. And a couple of those were in the fourth quarter when, again, not that the game was like, getting really close, but Lakers get it down to 10 and a couple points, and Jrue and Giannis made sure that that it didn't get closer than that. And again, a couple steals, a block, and we've seen it, right? The Bucks continuing to run this sort of switch everything scheme. I'm fine with it from just like getting rep standpoint. I think Jrue is really crucial to enabling something like that because again, very few point guards can be in a scheme like that and not just be like taken advantage of over and over by bigger players. And I think we saw it again tonight. Like he just competes, right? Whether it's Anthony Davis, whether it's LeBron. Not saying that you necessarily would seek out that matchup. We've seen him. The Pelicans would put him on LeBron like by choice as like a primary defender. I think LeBron's a little too big for him, sort of, possession after possession. But in these switch scenarios, again, he's just so impressive the way he can hold his ground and compete and just make life hard on bigger guys. So yeah, I thought again, a little shout out to Jrue and Grayson. It was kind of a story of halves. Giannis was just incredible. 23 points in the first half, 21 points in the second half. Jrue was more of a second half guy. Bobby was pretty even, and then Chris and Grayson were certainly much more in the first half. So yeah, just a fun night, and again, some some things they can certainly get better at. But I thought you think about just a road trip where you're trying to get out of it, trying to kind of push up in the standings. Not much more you can ask for than from these first three games and than what you've seen. They've just looked really sharp. They've been shooting the ball really well. And they've taken at least some shots. It's not like they've just faced teams that have been completely unlucky from 3-point range. The Lakers are just kind of a bad 3-point shooting team, 31% tonight. So yeah, I mean that just sort of was who they are. And by the way, one other thing, I mean Westbrook I thought was pretty good against the Bucks in the first matchup with LeBron out. He was obviously ball was in his hands a lot, and I thought he really made an effort to drive and kick and not kind of put up a lot of bad jump shots. But man, when he's out there with LeBron and AD, what's the point of Russell Westbrook on this team when he's out there with those guys? Like he's just Bucks and every other team they don't guard him, and when the ball's not in his hands, he's just you're basically playing 4-on-5. So I don't know. It's just tough to watch, and I know a lot of smart people, and I think it seemed pretty obvious that was not a great fit when they kind of went all in to acquire him last summer. But yeah, that's just a rough fit there, and I have no idea. What kind of happens next for the Lakers, but LeBron still looks really good. It's amazing. Like the numbers he's putting up are pretty incredible still, but man, that's just a team that is not not very well constructed. When Malik Monk and Stanley Johnson are your third and fourth best players, seemingly, that's probably not a great sign.
A couple of quick notes, I guess, before we wrap this up. Greg Monroe, let's say not a banner night for Greg. Look, we understand why he's back here. Maybe you saw tonight, but again, he's a body, and he was out there. I was surprised to look at the box score and see he actually played 15 minutes tonight. It's kind of shocking to me that he was out there for that much, but things didn't go too well, particularly when he was trying to score around the basket. One other note, Wesley Matthews didn't do a lot tonight, so I'm not trying to say it was the type of performance that Lakers fans would have been thinking, oh my God, Wesley Matthews. But I did have a little chuckle to myself. You mentioned Trevor Ariza earlier in the podcast. He's out there starting for the Lakers. Wes Matthews was the ninth guy off the bench for the Bucks, and it's like, yeah, that's the role that Trevor Ariza should be playing at this stage of his career, not being asked to play major minutes in a major role for the Lakers. So anyway, they just look like a bunch of weird, ill-fitting individuals that don't stand much of a chance. It's kind of strange to see.
The irony is, I don't know if you remember seeing this, that Rob Pelinka, I think, was pounding the drum of, hey, don't judge us until Trevor Ariza's healthy.
Yeah, I mean,
we've seen him play. Yeah, I think we could have judged you before that. And hey, Carmelo didn't even play tonight, so I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. Do the Bucks score 150 if Carmelo plays tonight? Especially if he was taking Stanley Johnson's minutes. I mean, Stanley Johnson, had 16 points on 13 shots. I thought he gave them some nice minutes. Actually, he's actually kind of carved out a nice little role for himself. But again, it's like, when you're relying on Stanley Johnson to be kind of your like go-to wing stopper / six man, it's tough. So, and Talon Horton Tucker, the Lakers prized trade asset, 4 points on 3 shots in 29 minutes. So that's how that's going.
Yes, I couldn't help but think late in the game when the Lakers were trying to make a little bit of a charge, and as you pointed to, they're not a good 3-point shooting team, which obviously makes it difficult when you are trying to make a major comeback. But when Austin Reeves took that step back in transition, one dribble, I thought to myself, that's very Westbrookian. He's been spending too much time with Russell Westbrook attempting that shot, and that pretty much ended the game. So either way, sad times, I would say, if you're a Lakers fan. I don't know what they're going to be able to achieve over the next couple of days. I know we've had a lot of people ask about the trade deadline, still a couple of days away here. We've kind of loosely discussed it along the way, for the most part, just because the Bucks, we understand their situation. There doesn't seem like there's a lot of major moving parts there, but we do have a day tomorrow before the trade deadline. If anything happens before then, we'll discuss it. If not, we'll look ahead to what could potentially happen in the next day or moving forward. We'll see. I'm not expecting major things for the Bucks, obviously, but the trade deadline could be interesting nonetheless, particularly for any Ben Simmons or James Harden observers out there in the universe. So we'll see what happens, Frank. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't expect anything big, but Dante DiVincenzo, I don't know. Feels like a coin flip whether or not he's on this roster post trade deadline. But we'll see. Again, I think most important acquisition the Bucks can make at this point is Brook Lopez coming back from injury. We know he's been on the trip with them, getting his back checked out. I think Bud had some comments suggesting something vaguely positive from his latest checkup. But again, just when we may see Brook remains an open question. I don't think it's going to be very soon, but again, still 2+ months left in the regular season, so there's still time for him to take his time. And again, last thing we want to do is see Brook get rushed back, especially given Bucks kind of holding their own and again continue to claw their way back up in the standings without him.
Nothing sums up the situation better than my good friend Malika Andrews, who I do love, who said today on NBA Sales, tweeted out that the Bucks are optimistic that Brook Lopez could return in the coming weeks or months.
Well, that nails it down.
Maybe years. We're hoping it's more weeks than years. We'll see with Brook Lopez. But either way, like I said, we'll be back for the podcast tomorrow. Don't forget to check out Locked On Bets with your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling as well. Again, for those that have been able to stick through this, apologies for the audio. I'm on the road today, but from time to time, this type of thing happens. But either way, everyone's in good spirits. The Bucks beat the Lakers. They're rolling 3-0 on the West Coast road trip. Be back tomorrow in the lead up to this game against the Phoenix Suns. But Frank and myself will leave it there. Sleep well, Frank. Go get some rest.
Thanks, man. So we'll all sleep well. Bucks Nation sleeps well tonight. And again, let's just appreciate Giannis Antetokounmpo's greatness, right? We've been seeing this for a better part of a decade now, and man, again, guys, like we're never going to see another player like this. Just enjoy it, appreciate it. Let's keep talking about it, and long live Giannis.
Speak to you guys tomorrow.